What we really need more of is people identifying their big idea and waking up every single morning and living within their zone of fire. We need more people doing that. We don't need more people, Shawn, waking up unhappy, depressed, driving to a job that they're stressed about, that they don't like, that they're miserable, always having these swirling thoughts that they're not living up to their potential.
My guy, the legend, icon alert, John Lee Dumas. How are you today, man?
Brother, anytime I get to hang out with you, the average of the 5 people I spend the most time with just goes up. So
Yes.
I am ecstatic to be hanging out with you.
Yes, man. It's an honor. And I mean that literally. You're an icon in this space of podcasting, which has become such a powerful medium, impacting the lives of millions and millions of people. So first of all, how does that feel for you to be somebody who is really a pioneer, doing something exceptional in the podcast space and to see it blow up like it has?
You know, it's kind of like that person like back in the early 1900s that was driving around this like motorized vehicle and people are like, what are you doing, bro? Like, don't you want to be on a horse right now? He's like, no, this thing's cool. This thing's real cool. It's called a car. Like, you should definitely check it out. They're like, whatever, man. Come on. We got a horse. Like, everybody knows horses are the thing. Like, that was me back in 2012. I'm like, you guys should like listen to podcasts. I mean, like, I have a podcast. They're just like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to listen to like sports talk radio and I'm going to listen to Miley Cyrus. Like, who needs podcasting? And now I'm just like, I tried to tell you guys. Now it's here. It's too late. Everybody's arrived. Everybody and their mother has a podcast, which I love. And it's awesome.
It's incredible, man. People like, but I got the best horse. Where do you see this thoroughbred? You know, it's like a Mustang combination with like some wild unicorn, but it's not this thing. So that's powerful, man. All right. So listen, you've done so much. You've had a major impact in my life and the lives of so many other people. Right now, we're living at a time where there's a lot of change happening. A lot of things are in flux, a lot of uncertainty. And I just think it's really opened the door for people to finally tap into what their purpose is, tap into a career that fulfills them. You know, we talk about all dimensions of health here on the Model Health Show: physical health, mental and emotional health, relationship health, and also financial health and well-being. And a big part of our livelihood is what we do for a living. So you, right now, as of this recording, this is now available. The Common Path to Uncommon Success is available. And I'll tell you, John, coming from where I came from, when I started my show, I was still living in Ferguson, Florissant, Missouri. Every single step in here, which you know this already, are things that I did to get where I am today, whether I was conscious of it or not. So number one, what inspired you to write this book right now?
Brother, people like you, honestly, people that I saw from afar and even up close, because you and I worked together. You were my mentor in the health space for a while. And just I saw that they had all the tools. They had the message, the mission, the passion, the voice, but they just didn't know how to do the common few things. And it's only a common few things that all the successful entrepreneurs that I was interacting with were doing. Because, you know, take a quick step back. Like, I've now in the past decade interviewed 3,000 successful entrepreneurs. And I've learned from those thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of conversation that there's only a handful of commonalities that all successful entrepreneurs share. In fact, there's 17 core foundational principles. And those 17 core foundational principles actually can be put in a chronological order, which I did for this book, and turned into a 17-step roadmap to financial freedom and fulfillment. And that was the concept of the book. It was like, how can I get the Shawn Stevensons of the world, you know, circa 2012, 2014, you know, whatever, of the world, like the answers they need now, today? Because I did not title this book The Complicated Path or The Hidden Path or The Secret Path, because it's none of those things. Yeah. It is a very common path. And Shawn, you and I know this now, of course, but you know, what's, you know, common sense isn't always common practice. And so even though to you and I now, this is very common sense. And even if you were to tell us back in 2012, 2014, 2016, when you and I were building our businesses, we would have been like, oh, that's actually common sense too, now that you say it to me, but I just didn't even know it at the time. Like, but it's just still not common practice. And so, you know, I have a podcast, this Entrepreneurs on Fire, over 3,000 episodes, 100 million listens, over 1.4 million monthly listens. I have a massive audience, Fire Nation. And that audience essentially asks me the same 10 questions. They're slightly different and personalized, but they're essentially the same 10 questions. And it's not humanly possible for one person to answer every individual of these hundreds of thousands of emails I get every day, week, and month on essentially those same 10 questions. But it was feasible for me to sit down and to finally write the definitive step-by-step roadmap that provided the answers that they need, that has every single answer to their questions in one book in a step-by-step format. So, brother, you've written multiple books. This is actually my first traditionally published book, but this was a labor, and I mean the word labor, figuratively and literally, of love. I sat down every day for 8 months. The first 2 hours of every day for those 8 months was writing this book. That was my cap. I'm not a writer. Like, that was what I could do to keep the highest quality. 480 writing hours later, 71,000 words, 273 pages. This book exists, and I cannot wait for people who are just like the Shawn Stevensons of 2012 to get this book in their hands and actually have a roadmap they can follow to their version of uncommon success, to their version of financial freedom.
Yes, yes. You just said it, man. That's the power of an idea. It's come into existence because of an idea. That's how powerful we all are, and what you do, one of these steps. And so obviously we can't go through all 17 right now, but we're going to definitely dive into a few of these for folks. The first step really is identifying what your big idea is, and you also share in the book, which maybe we could touch on a little bit of this throughout, but you share your, not necessarily stumbling, but your adventure and your ups and downs through finding what it is that you're here to do. And, many people we tend to see the end result. Like, this guy is just incredibly successful. His podcast won the award for top podcast of the year. He's impacted the lives of so many people. He's interviewed 3,000 entrepreneurs on his show. It's unbelievable, but we don't see the story leading up to it. So in chapter 1, you talk about identifying your big idea. It took you a while to identify what yours was, but when you did, you took it to another level. How can we help other people to identify their big idea?
Shawn, you have a really big heart. I mean, I know that. I've met you in person. You've been my personal mentor. I've read your books. I've seen you in action. I listened to your podcast. You have a really big heart. And if I may be so bold, I have a really big heart. Like, I really want other people to have success in their world, because what we need more of is people having success. What we really need more of is people identifying their big idea and waking up every single morning and living within their zone of fire. We need more people doing that. We don't need more people, Shawn, waking up unhappy, depressed, driving to a job that they're stressed about, that they don't like, that they're miserable, always having these swirling thoughts that they're not living up to their potential. Like, it's not even really that possible to get healthy, even in the fitness and nutritional sense, if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're not able to sleep well, if you're not able to eat right because you're always so stressed and nervous and you're just overall unhappy. Like, man, when you're just like living life to the fullest and like you're living in your zone of fire, how much easier is it to go crush a gym session, go to bed early to get a good night's sleep, wake up on fire and do the things that you love? Like, everything snowballs. And brother, most people are going to die in this world. Most people will die in this world never having even identified their big idea. And that is so sad. It is so sad that they never even once just sat down to intentionally go through a very simple and not even that labor-intensive process of identifying what their personal big idea is. And that breaks my heart. That breaks my heart. And I know you having a big heart, it breaks your heart as well, my friend. And I want that for people. So that's why step 1, chapter 1, my man, we break it down for you. Step-by-step process on how you, for potentially the first time in your life, can identify your big idea so that you can start waking up every single day and be like Shawn, be like myself, be like the other 3,000 successful entrepreneurs I've been able to interview over the years, and live your best life within your specific zone of fire. I teach you how to get to that zone of fire in a very methodical and step-by-step process. Like, I really want that for you, because that's what we need more of people, is living in that zone of fire. And man, I'm passionate about it, as you can tell, brother.
Absolutely. Yes, you are, man. And you're real as well. And that's the thing about you. And, just the people who are in my circle and who stay in my circle tend to be people who are overgivers, and that's just one of those things that I got right off the bat from you, is just you're somebody who will do whatever for somebody, really step up for them, support, serve. And you do that for your community in such a way. If people only knew the amount of time and energy you put in it, 3,000 interviews, it's unbelievable in this short amount of time. You had this idea to do something that was revolutionary in the podcast space at the time when you did it. So I would love if you could share what you did that was so unique. And also, you talk about the 2 mistakes that people make when trying to identify their big idea.
So absolutely, my man. Let's take a step back here, back to 2012, when I was like, okay, something hasn't been working. I get out of the military at 26 years old. I immediately go through 6 years of struggle. I went to law school, dropped out, corporate finance, quit after a year, commercial real estate, residential real estate, failed. There I am after 6 years of that struggle, 32 years old, saying, I should really have figured this out by now. I don't know what success is. I don't know what, happiness is. Both of these things are eluding me. What do I do? And, like I kind of alluded to at the beginning of this episode, I'm so intentional today about surrounding myself with the right people. And, you being one of those people, whenever I get the chance, you did promise me you're coming to Puerto Rico. So that's pretty exciting. I'm fired up about that. But I realized back in 2012, hey, I'm the average of the 5 people I spend the most time with. And if I'm being honest with myself, my average, my 5 kind of suck. They're not bad people. They're not evil, but they're like Debbie Downers. They're like Don Doolittles. And I'm the average of that. Shockingly, that's me too. I'm Don Doolittle. This needs to end. So I started reading the right books, listening to the audiobooks, listening to podcasts, and loving the medium of podcasting. And then saying to myself, okay, this is the space that I know I can make an impact on. It's not a big space at the time. I knew that. You knew that. We talked about it. But I knew there was something special there because of the intimacy that I was feeling towards the other host that I was listening to. I'm like, this is a really cool medium, but what do I do? So, there's my big idea, Shawn. I sat down, I did a similar thing to this process that I wrote in the book, although obviously after 10 years, step 1, chapter 1 is incredibly advanced and thorough. And I wish I had this process back in 2012, but my kind of stumbling process got me to okay, my big idea is to start a podcast. Okay. But that's where most people fail, to answer one of your questions here, is they're just okay, I have my big idea as a podcast, but guess what, brother? There were thousands and thousands of podcasts. That big idea would have failed because it just was a podcast. That's nothing that's going to catch hold. So I'm like, how do I do step number 2 in this book, which is discover a niche within this big idea? Of course, I didn't know the process at the time, but I just understood somehow in this little, pea-sized brain of my entrepreneurial brain at the time that just this big idea wouldn't work because the competition would slaughter me. So I said, okay, I've got to find a niche that's, at least a little unique. And so what about business podcasts? Okay, there's a few hundred business podcasts, not going to work. I get slaughtered. I went one niche down again. What about business podcasts that interview entrepreneurs? This is interesting. There's 7 of those. Do I want to be the 8th best podcast interviewing entrepreneurs? No, thank you, because who wants the 8th best? I want to be the best. How do I be the best? Well, I niched down again, and this niche actually hurt because it was niching down so far, but it was a void that needed to be filled. It was an underserved part of the market that needed to be served. It was an opportunity that needed to be taken, and that was the fact that I looked at what I complained about most in the podcasting space. I said, I love these interview podcasts of entrepreneurs, but they're coming out once every 2 weeks. I can't wait 13 days, or even the ones that were once a week. I can't wait 7 days for the next podcast. I want to wake up every morning when I take this miserable drive to work. I want an inspiring episode waiting for me with a successful entrepreneur telling me, what's possible. I need that every single day, not once a week. So I said, I'm going to step into the space. I'm going to step into the void. I'm going to take that quote from Gandhi and be the change that I want to see in the world. And I'm going to create the first daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. I am literally going to 10x the quantity of everybody else. They're doing four a month. They're doing 3 a month. They're doing 2 a month. I'm doing 30 a month, literally 10xing their quantity. And so guess what happened, Shawn? The day I launched Entrepreneurs on Fire, it was the best daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. It was the worst daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs, but it was the only daily podcast interviewing entrepreneurs. And guess what? That is why I was able to win at such a high level so quickly, because I was the only. People had to beat a path down to my door to get to the only solution to their real problem, which is a theme that we'll be talking about throughout the interview today. I was the best solution to a real problem. I was the only solution, but that also made me the best solution to a real problem. People that wanted a daily podcast. And by the way, not everybody did. I wasn't trying to serve everybody. That's the first key. I was trying to serve my core niche. And so, boom, step one, chapter one, is that a big idea? Then you've got to discover the niche within it, which is step two, chapter two, that's not being filled. And then step three, you've got to know your avatar, the perfect listener for your podcast, the perfect viewer for your show, the perfect customer or client for your product, service, community, whatever that might be. This is the process. This is how it works, step by step by step. I put it chronological in this book for you to follow the common path, but that's going to result in uncommon success.
I love it. Let's go. Let's go. So
Let's
powerful.
go.
So powerful. You know what? This is something, and I love the fact that you just mentioned this. It's in a chronological order. And,
Yes.
you know, it's ignited really with that big idea. And you talk about in that section, you know, just to drill down a little bit more, that a lot of people, you know, it's like passion. I need to do what you're passionate about. People talk about that. But that's passion isn't enough. It also needs to be something that you do have some kind of gift, talent, capacity, work ethic in it. There's got to be some kind of expertise, and you blend in those two things together. And you dive in deep on what that looks like. But then drilling down, and also I got to say this too. When you talked about, like, I'm a very visual thinker, and so many people leaving this world without having tapped into their big idea. And it reminded me of a quote from Wayne Dyer that stuck with me for many years. Don't die with your music still in you. Oof. Don't die with your music still in you. Oof. And we all have not just one song, but multiple songs, so much beauty and brilliance. And that big idea, we can tap into what one of our greatest potentialities are by just honing in on specific dimensions of it. And you go through that in chapter one. Chapter two, discover your niche. Chapter three, create your avatar. And one of my favorite chapters is chapter four, choosing a platform. And especially my ultimate favorite chapter is chapter five, find your mentor. Let's spend some time on find your mentor, because this is giving you jet fuel once you've got those first four dialed in.
I love that. And it's your favorite chapter for a reason, which we'll get to. I do want to just comment real quick on that quote, because it's so fantastic. I mean, don't die with your music still within, because as you said, like, I love the fact that, you know, you have like this song that needs to be sung. And guess what? As you even said it, Shawn, there are songs you have to share with the world. But here's the problem. Here's the key. A lot of people are scared and nervous that when they niche down into this small little niche that allows them to get initial momentum and traction, which is so key and so important for every entrepreneur to do when they're starting, that they're going to be stuck there forever. And that's exactly the wrong way to look at it. A better way to look at it, which was, you know, inspired by the quote that you shared, is, hey, every artist that's ever become huge in the music industry has had one song that put them on the map. And then guess what happens? Everybody then goes and listens to all their songs that they create from that point forward. And by the way, backwards. And so that niche is like, that's your one hit song. And your only way to get a hit song is to get it in that niche so you can be the best solution to a real problem. And then going forward, that hit song is going to allow you to share all the songs you had to share in this world. Otherwise, none of them will be shared. So for me, like, this podcast, Entrepreneurs on Fire, gave me the initial platform to share this song of this idea of, you know, this podcast. And then it's just expanded out and allowed me to come on and do all these amazing things, create, you know, the #1 paid podcasting community in the world, to do 3 journals, the Freedom Journal, the Mastery Journal, the Podcast Journal, to write a book that's not about podcasting. This book is about you coming up with your version of uncommon success and the overall business and entrepreneurship space. So my songs have been released by that one song that I was able to really master in that small niche. And so many people are so scared of that niche, and it just befuddles me, because I know. And that's why I want them to know that discovering your niche is that critical part. But sliding forward to, step 3, creating your avatar, step 4, choosing your platform, step 5, actually finding your mentor. And here's, where you play such a big role in this book, because, I sat down for every one of these chapters and I said, who best exemplifies to me, of the 3,000 people that I've interviewed, by the way, each specific step. And I brought on the top best entrepreneurial example I could think of for that specific step. And for step 5, chapter 5, like, it was you, brother. Like, you were the person that, number one, was my mentor. So I saw how that relationship worked, and you taught me so much and allowed me to, be younger at 41 than I was when we met at 35, and, continue to just go from strength to strength. And something that we can talk about offline later. I got my cold plunge arriving next week. Like, I continue to just up level my health and wellness and doing all these awesome things. I got those blinds people installing blackout shades right now, the one step of the button, coming down. And my mentor back in 2012 was found off of one very basic phrase. And this phrase is so key. Your perfect mentor is somebody who is currently where you want to be. So when I looked at my life and where I wanted to be, I wanted to be a successful business podcast host. So I went and I found a successful business podcast host, Jamie Masters. And guess what? That was a perfect mentor for me in that moment at that time. Years later, when I said I finally need to get my health game in check, Shawn is somebody who is where I want to be health and wellness wise. And so I hired Shawn to be my mentor to get me to where he is. And that's what my focus has always been. And now he's still my virtual mentor via his podcast and his videos and all the things that he does, and his books, of course. So this is where I'll hand it back over to you, because I brought you in and I said, Shawn, I want to feature you in this step, chapter 5, step 5, brother, finding your mentor. So take it away.
Oh man, John, this is so powerful. Such an honor as well, And when you reached out about this, I had this incredible just flashback. It's like a movie of all the people who've played a role and been influential in my life. But there are always going to be these primary. And I shared with you this statement that's in the chapter, that when looking for mentorship, you want to have not too few, not too many, but just right. It's the Goldilocks approach to mentorship. And you don't want to just be tied to one guru for all dimensions of life. Life is so versatile and different and fluid. Your mentorship can change as you change. But also, I had a mentor in taking me from this brick and mortar nutrition clinical practice, strength conditioning coach, and I just had this pull within me to impact the lives of more people. How do I take this experience and multiply it times 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million by taking it online and learning from my virtual mentor at the time was Tony Robbins. Now he follows me on Instagram, by the way.
What?
Yeah. It's a whole other story. So creating this connection and having the people you're a fan of becoming your fan is always possible. But also in my life firsthand, I had a mentor. Probably the biggest impact on my life as far as mentorship was one of my clients. And he came into my clinical practice with his wife. His wife was coming in to see me. And shout out to Susan Balk. And, we worked on a program for her. She was in her late 60s, I believe, at the time. And Ken was just sitting there very stoic next to her. He was 77 and just had this like energy about him, and ultimately he ended up becoming my client because I guess he was so impressed in me and his stoic nature. And he actually couldn't move his arm at the time. He had an injury, and he had went through all of this time and just couldn't get better. Within 6 months, he was doing full push-ups on the ground. He was, we helped to normalize his blood pressure. The list goes on and on. But in our time together, he ended up becoming one of my best friends and a mentor for an area of my life that I had no education in, which was financial literacy. I was not taught one drop, coming from poverty, but also going through traditional education, not one drop about how to be successful and financially literate. How do you make money and make money work for you? There was no Success 101 class. And so he really filled that gap and showed me different things about like savings for kids' education, IRAs, all this stuff. It was like a different language. And so again, but then at some point I might outgrow him. At some point I'm going to outgrow Tony Robbins virtual coaching, so that's some of the stuff that we talked about in that chapter, and is incredibly powerful.
Totally agreed, brother. I mean, it was an honor to have you on again. One thing that was one of the bigger honors for me with this book is that this book is 17 chapters. It's 17 steps. Every step is one critical step in the process. And I wrote down my 17 dream contributors for every single one of those steps. And I had a backup list because, some people got to say no. I had a backup to the backup. I didn't even have to go to my initial backup on one single step in that process. I got 100% yeses from every single one of my big wishes. So that was really a touching moment for me, because it does show you that, with this podcast and with what I've been sharing with the world, I really have built meaningful relationships of people who are, more than excited and happy to, show reciprocity and support me when I'm looking to go big, and they believe in my message as well. You having me on the show is such an honor, because it's validation that you really do believe in this message that I'm trying to share with the world. Because, we've talked a little bit about this, but it's I've been quote unquote successful for a long time now. I mean, I've been a multi-million-dollar business, net profit 8 years in a row. I've had 91 months of over $100,000 of net profits in a row, some months much more, but never less. We share these VR income reports on our website. And I did come to that place where I'm like, okay, I'm financially set. I don't need to keep grinding and putting in the work and doing these things. I'm good on the financial side of things. But it was actually a quote by a friend of mine, Aaron Walker, when I was interviewing him on a show years ago. And he said, when you get to a place of success, you'll realize it's now time to move into a place of significance. And that quote really stuck with me. And that's exactly what I feel like I've been doing now for, almost half a decade, is just moving into this place of significance. And it does break my heart when I can't answer everybody's question about, John, what do I do now? What is the next step here? What is the process here? What am I doing wrong here? I know the answers to all of their questions. It's just impossible to answer the multitude of them until I can literally now just hand them this gift that, books, brother. I mean, what am I making on this traditionally published book? 34 cents per copy. This is not the point of why Shawn writes books and I write books. We do this because we have to get this message out to the world, because if we don't, then people are going to consume the wrong information or not have the information that we truly know that they need. So that's why this book has to get out there.
Yeah, so powerful, man. And you just said it. It's not a big monetary thing with a book. It's not letting your music die in you, and also, of course, like you just said, it's that impact and making sure people get it from the source and get the right information. It becomes an obsession. It becomes a duty that you have. So it's powerful to tap into that. So this leads to the next one, which again, having that mentor, having somebody who's a template, a model to follow for different areas of our lives. Because we want success in every area. We can have it all. That's another misconception, that we've it's either and, when it's really either or, when it's really a both and world. And so the next one, and this actually blends together with the one prior, join a mastermind. This is something every Monday I'm in my mastermind with Pat Flynn, Jamie Tardy, Todd Tressiter, and Rowie, aka Rosemary Gardner. These superheroes in their respective fields, you wouldn't even think we would come together. I'm in health and fitness, but there's a common thread there of support, of insight, of different voices. So creating or joining a mastermind, and your mentor for your getting started in your podcast is in my mastermind. She invited me in the first place. So Jamie Masters, big shout out to Jamie.
Big shout out to Jamie. She's doing amazing things. And she was an amazing contributor to this chapter, because guess what? 99.9% of people doing masterminds are doing them wrong. And what it just means when you're doing it wrong, you're wasting your time. You're just wasting time, and you don't have time to waste. So I sat down to once and for all, literally train you and teach you and guide you how to do a mastermind the right way, how to either join the right mastermind and how that mastermind should be run, or how to create your own masterminds and run that mastermind the correct way. I mean, Jamie's contribution is fantastic. I mean, it's how she runs your mastermind that you're in, which, has been thriving for, I think, like 12 years now. And it's just amazing to see. And I just want people to stop doing things wrong, because it's just, again, it's not like they're way off. They're just off by a couple flips of the switch. And if they could just start doing things right, everything would change for them. And that's really, honestly, Shawn, how I want people to use this book. Like, I want people to look at this book and say, oh, okay, it looks like I'm on step 7, chapter 7. I'm just going to start there and go forward. No. That is not the way you use this book, because believe me, there are things that you've done wrong in steps 1 through 6. So take the time, go through every one of these 71,000 words. And at every chapter, 3 things are going to happen. You're going to, number 1, you're going to say, oh, okay, awesome. I actually am crushing my quote unquote big idea, like validated, good to go, check, move on to step 2. Or, and this is more likely what's going to happen, you're going to say, oh, wow, like there's definitely some tweaks and some adjustments I need to make to really crush this step of the 17-step roadmap. And then there's going to be the other third option, which is going to happen to some people. They're going to say, whoa, let's wipe this slate clean, because I've been doing this all hella wrong. And like, I need to stop that. Let's refresh, let's reset, and let's do this right. And then what's going to happen by step 17, chapter 17, you're now going to be able to look back and say, for the first time in my life, I am on a 17-step roadmap. I have completed a 17-step roadmap that has been trod upon, that has been followed by over 3,000 successful entrepreneurs. There are no leaks in my ship. This is a rock solid 17-step roadmap to get me to my financial freedom and my fulfillment. That's what this book is.
Incredible. The next few steps involve actually doing the work, creating some content, just in that creation process. And also, of course, you don't have to be a quote creative to absolutely just knock it out of the park. And so we can tap on this just a little bit, but I definitely want to get to 9. I think is going to be important for everybody. But within this content creation, this is the question that I have for you. In today's world, there's so much going on, and we have this excuse a lot of times that we don't have a lot of time. And you talk about actually designing a production plan.
All you have is time. Like, all you have is time in this world, and you have to use this time correctly if you're going to win at a high level. Now, real quick, this is a 71,000 word book. The average chapter is 3,550 words. Chapter 7, step 7's 13,500 words. That chapter is a business book in and of itself. It is a beast, because I'm going to be honest with you right now. And I'm not talking specifically, I'm talking to the 2016 Shawn, but I'm talking more broadly to your audience right now. And don't hate me for it, because the truth does hurt, but it needs to be said. Your content production plan sucks. Like, it's terrible. And guess what? Mine used to be terrible. Shawn's used to be terrible. I looked it over actually when he was giving me health advice. I'm like, your content production plan is terrible. It is absolutely terrible. I got you on Instagram for the first time, like, which is, being so
right.
And other things as well. Like, I literally was able to give back to you for how much you were giving to me in the health space. And my content production plan was terrible. Now it's fantastic. If I could swear on this show, you know what I would say. It is fantastic. It really is. But it took me a decade to get here. And this is what I consider one of the biggest gifts in this book, is the 13,500 words that I'm gifting to you to finally, for the first time in your life, have a content production plan, to design your own. I teach you how to design your own and actually take control back of your life and actually share your message in the right way with the world. This is everything.
So true. You just said it. The thing that I marvel at the most about you and Kate and what you guys have accomplished is your ability to create content consistently. It's out of this world, but it's of this world. So I definitely, one of the most powerful parts of the book for myself personally, truly, was chapter 9, because I saw so much of what we all tend to do, and I've done this in my life as well, but I know that this really hinders so many people. And this is simply launching, doing the thing. I have this passion, I have this goal, I have this big idea. I'm even creating content, but you've got to put it out there. Let's talk about that.
Listen, you went to another chapter where I'm unfortunately going to just have to speak some hard truth to people, because sometimes the truth hurts. And I want to be clear. when I'm saying these things, I'm saying them from a place of experience. Like I've been there, I've done that. And I believe with all of my heart, and I actually know from conversations with Shawn that he's been there and done that too. Launching is everything. You've got to get your voice out to the world way before you're even ready to. Your message, your mission, whatever that product, that service, if it's a physical, whatever it is, until it's out there, you're nothing, because until it starts getting real feedback from real people, there's no place for you to go. You're literally in neutral, just revving your engine. And so this step in the process is so key, because so many people want to live in pre-launch worlds. Oh, I'm in pre-launch world. Because guess what? When I'm in pre-launch world, and this is a great Seth Godin quote, this might work. And guess what? It might work. Just like I was like in pre-launch of my podcast, I'm like, this daily podcast might work. I mean, it might not work, but it might work. And it's so exciting to live in this pre-launch world, because it might work. And we know that as soon as we launch it, it has a chance to fail. And then if it does fail, then we know that it doesn't work. And that's sad. So we're scared of that. And so here's the word that we use. We say, I'm a perfectionist. Hey, Shawn, I'm just a perfectionist. So like I was going to launch today, but I'm going to wait a couple weeks because I'm a perfectionist. And what I launch has to be perfect. Whenever you hear that word, either you're saying that word or Shawn's saying that word or I'm saying that word, whenever you hear that word, replace the word perfectionist with coward. You're not a perfectionist. That word does not exist. You are a coward. And I'm saying that as an officer in the U.S. Army that spent 13 months in Iraq. I can say this to you, and it's true. You're a coward. I spent 13 months in Iraq. I consider myself kind of brave in some scenarios. I was a coward. I hid behind the wall of perfectionism for over a month, scared like a little whiny coward that I was, to launch this podcast into the world, because this might not work. And that was scary to me. And you hiding behind your word perfectionism, like I was hiding behind my word perfectionism, you're a coward. I was a coward. Most human beings are cowards when it comes to launching, because it is scary. You're a human being. It's okay to have these emotions. It's okay to be a coward. It's okay to have fear. That's hypothetically what kept us alive for 100,000 years, because we were a coward to walk out of our cave at night in front of the saber-toothed tiger. Good. We survived. We procreated, and now we're here today. Wonderful. But now it's 2021 and beyond, okay? We don't have saber-toothed tigers outside of our door. We still have trolls, and we have haters, and we have all this stuff. But stop being a coward. Stop using the word perfectionism and just launch your craft.
John, you're like a big old sexy bumblebee, because that stings, man.
Bing!
Listen, man, this has been incredible, and there's so much more. Obviously, the rest of the steps we can go through, each one would take up an entire episode to talk about.
True.
But I would love if you can just share this answer and just on this topic, because these steps are very simple and they're proven. But I want to ask you this: is the common path to uncommon success easy? Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, where can we get this incredible book, man?
Look at this book. For people that are watching video, this word says common, okay? It doesn't say the complicated path or the secret path or the hidden path. It is the common path, because I wanted everybody to know that every single person hearing my voice, seeing my face, believe me, you can go on this path, and believe me, you can get to your version of uncommon success. This 17-step roadmap, step by step by step, will get you to financial freedom and fulfillment, guaranteed. It's a common path. Anybody can do it. Shawn, it's a hard path. It is hard work. This book is hard work. If you are going to buy this book and go through this process and apply its principles, you are going to work hard. And guess what? Less than 5% of you that buy this book will truly do everything in this book it takes to succeed, because you're going to stop at chapter 1 or chapter 6, or you're going to put it up and it's going to get dusty. And I can't change everybody's life. I want to, I can't. But for those 5% of people who are really going to do the work, let me just tell you straight up, man to man, man to woman, mano y mano, human to human, this is hard work. Building my dream business, Shawn, was really hard work. This was hard work. Entrepreneurs on Fire, doing 3,000 episodes in 9 years and building my media empire into what it is today, amassing over $20 million in revenue, like not just gross revenue. I'm talking net profit, money in my pocket. That's hard work. Building the team, creating the content, getting up every day and doing it. That's hard work. What you've done, Shawn, to create your 2 best-selling books and your practice and your experience and success and having Tony Robbins wanting to consume your content, like that was hard flipping work. But you know what else is hard? Being broke, living paycheck to paycheck, getting up every morning and doing something that you have to do instead of what you want to do or were called to do or are on fire to do. Getting up every morning and looking in the mirror, but kind of avoiding your own eyes as you're shaving your face or as you're kind of, doing your hair because you're embarrassed to admit to yourself that you're just so underachieving your potential, which by the way was the first 32 years of my life. So been there again, done that again. That's hard too. And at 32 years old, Shawn, when I looked in the mirror and I was avoiding my own eye contact because I was frankly disappointed in myself as a human being, I got to choose my hard. I could choose the hard work of creating my dream business. But guess what? The other path was hard too. Living a life that was broke, living paycheck to paycheck, being an underachiever and a disappointment to myself, that was a hard path too. So why don't you choose your hard? And if that hard means you're willing to put in the flipping work, go to any bookstore, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, BAM, Indigo if you're in Canada, and buy this book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success. Choose your hard.
John Lee Dumas, everybody. Thank you so much for being a continued inspiration in my life. And thank you for creating this incredible book and this incredible platform to keep serving all of us, man. I appreciate you so much.
Love you, brother.
That's John Lee Dumas, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the show today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. I wanted to end with the launch portion of the book because it is so important and so powerful. I would not be here today with you had I not said yes and just took action and put things out into the world. Even right now, my latest book, Eat Smarter, has become a USA Today national bestseller, all the good stuff, the #1 new release book in America the week that it came out. The list goes on and on, but that did not happen by accident. My first book was something I put together. It was like a pamphlet. I went to Office Depot and with the little holes and the hole puncher, all that whole thing, and put it together. It was like selling this book at nutrition classes, cooking classes that I was teaching around my local area, because I did it from a perspective of just wanting to give more value. I know that people couldn't learn everything right there in that session with me, something to take home and to continue to learn. And it went from that to writing my first published book, which I self-published, which this book shall remain nameless for now. But I was tapped into that perfectionist issue at the time. Every time I would go back for my last review of the book before actually printing it and putting it out there, I kept changing things. And this is the nature of humanity because we continue to look at things with updated vision, with updated eyes, and you'll always find something because you continue to grow and change. And if you just keep on micromanaging the small stuff and not putting it out into the world, you can't get the real experience, the real feedback, and learning what works. From there, that's when we got after that book, which even when I moved from Ferguson, Florissant, we had this crate of these books in my garage still. All right. It didn't really work out, on paper. But in reality, it worked out tremendously because it was the first time, it was the moment I became an author. It was the moment that I worked and did what was necessary to get this important book, this important knowledge that I felt into other people's hands and to have that experience. And the process, all the different qualities that had to emerge in me to write that book, to be able to put ideas together, to really tap into my own unique voice. These were all the things leading me to the next thing. And the next thing was Sleep Smarter. And that book became an international bestseller. It was the first sleep wellness book to become an international bestselling book. It's translated in 20 different languages, 20 different countries. And, it's at bookstores in Japan. It's in Slovenia. It's in France. The list goes on and is still going. We just got another foreign deal. Literally, I just got it today. It's because I said yes to that first step. and launched, even though it was not perfect, because I was so tied to that perfectionism. And as John talks about in this new book, perfectionism hinders progress and success. You've got to launch. You've got that idea. You've got that gift in you. You don't want to die with your music still in you. You've got to do it. This is the time to do it. So much is in flux. So much is changing with the job market. This illusion of certainty is now, the veil is being pulled back. We've got to take our own lives and our own careers and our own possibilities, our own success into our own hands, because ultimately it was always there in the first place. And so with that, in the creation of what that is, it doesn't mean you just jump in, full force without, not looking before you leap. Not that scenario necessarily. For some people, that's their vibe. For all of us, there's going to be some discomfort, but you can be a sidepreneur right now. Just have that small thing that you're working on as your passion project, that you're putting your passion into, that you're cultivating, that you're expressing yourself with that big idea. And you're going to find so much joy even in that process. And so I just really wanted to hone in on this portion here because I have firsthand experience with all of these steps. When I'm telling you in this book, The Common Path to Uncommon Success, every single one of these steps are steps that I did. Because when I was going to college, living in Ferguson, Missouri, and all of the dynamics that included, being in an environment that was so indoctrinating, that was so encouraging of poor health, with fast food just everywhere you turn, no gym in miles and miles. I didn't know what a yoga studio was. I didn't know what yoga was. Janelle Monáe didn't have a song yet. Let me see you do that yoga. Shout out to everybody who knows that song. It wasn't even in my paradigm. I didn't know what health looked like, because all I'd grown up with and been inundated with was poor health, poor nutrition, poor eating habits, not understanding the difference in what food can be. These were all ideas that were foreign to me. And all I needed, even at that time, was a little bit of exposure, a little bit of mentorship, even if it was from afar. That was one of the steps. And I've employed that piece over and over and over again, so much so that this incredible book, when I tell you this, I got chills right now, guys. I literally cannot believe that people like John would put me into their book, published by their major publisher and seen in bookstores all over the world. It blows my mind. I'm not one of those people that's going to miss out and normalize these things, because it's all amazing. Life is amazing once we tap into it. And this goes back to one of the quotes that changed my life from Albert Einstein. There was a quote from Albert Einstein that also changed John's life. Funny enough, it was a different one. And the thing is, even when these quotes, they're attributed to Albert Einstein, he didn't tell me himself. This could have been Einstein's little cousin, Dilbert Einstein, who said this thing. But this quote from Einstein that's attributed to Einstein said that the most fundamental decision that you make as a human, the most fundamental decision that you make is whether you live in a friendly or hostile universe. When I heard that, it literally, something changed in me, something clicked. Because at that time, I'd been seeing the world around me as this hostile environment. I grew up in a hostile environment. There was beauty there, though. Literally in one of the times that I'm thinking about right now, when we lived in South St. Louis, and our 2-family apartment that we lived in upstairs portion, and then there's a little walkway, and then there's a 4-family flat, and the door closest to us was the crack spot. This is where crack cocaine was getting cooked up and distributed out of that apartment. And during this time, there was somewhat of a recreation center for the community, but it was always closed. Like, it was always something happening. They had an indoor pool there, but it'd be open like once every 3 weeks. It was always an issue. It just wasn't getting funding. It wasn't getting cared for. Parks were dangerous. going to play basketball. There's a couple of raggedy hoops in the neighborhood, but it can be a life-threatening situation just to go and play basketball. Gunfire might start spraying out. Even one of my good friends who's an incredible athlete, he actually got shot when he was out playing basketball, and somebody came through, shoot him. And so we would even, in the back alley, because in St. Louis, in LA, I haven't seen very many alleys. Where are the alleys at? All right. So anyways, but there's a back alley, and on the utility pole, we literally had a crate, like what you see in the movies. We had a crate up on the pole, and we're playing basketball on that crate. It was fun. It was beautiful looking back on it, but it was just life. There's always this beauty to behold. There's always this opportunity. There's always creativity. But the majority of my days were spent looking for problems, looking for trouble. And it kept me alive. It helped me to survive, but it can't help us to thrive. We have to get to a place of course, we can be intelligent and cautious and conscientious, but we have to be able to tap in and see the opportunity and see the beauty, no matter where we are. And so being in that environment at the time, I started to see beauty everywhere. I started to see opportunity. And sometimes I had to get outside of my environment to get access to the things that I really needed to get from where I was to where I wanted to be. But even that was brought about by me having the ability to start seeing the world in a different way, to see things as interconnected. It wasn't just about my neighborhood versus everywhere else. I started to see that we are a world family. I start to see that there's so much good that most people are just really good people, and they just want to be happy and successful. And sometimes we do things that seem to be negative just to get by and to survive, just to make a way. And so, changing my perspective started to change my exposures, the access that I was gaining, my opportunities, and thus the things that I was able to employ in my life. And so just really passionate about this subject, because at the end of the day, the work that we do for a living, our financial wellness, these are all things that have a major impact on our health overall. And these are things that need some more attention. This is part of what the Model Health Show is. The Model Health Show isn't just health, physical health. It's mental health, emotional health, relationship health, spiritual health, financial health. We can have health in all these areas. But it's taken sometimes moments like this, the common path to uncommon success, to lay out the roadmap on how to get there. So really excited about this. Definitely pick up the book. And listen, we're not stopping anytime soon. We've got some epic powerhouse shows coming your way very soon. So make sure to stay tuned. Take care. Have an amazing day. And I'll talk with you soon. Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here to uplevel your health today. Somewhere around 70% of the United States population is on prescription drugs. Your liver is handling that. And also your liver is responsible for food, food metabolism, that interaction as well. And the name, live,